Okay, so I'm just gonna start. Um, I'm Stephanie. I live in Arkansas. And this is my story. Um, I've never really talked to the camera by myself. I'm gonna be doing. This is gonna. This is gonna mess up. This is gonna mess. This is gonna mess everything up. You can't even see me. Okay. Um, I'm not gonna do this. Okay. That's not what we're gonna do. Okay. I'll just do this. So, yeah, lighting. Lighting. Okay. Because what you can see or you can't see is I'm doing a paint by number. Yeah. So I'm gonna talk and I'm gonna doodle or paint whatever as I go, and I'll just edit this. Yeah, I'll figure this out afterwards. Yeah, I'm looking for number 18. That's 16. Where's 18? Bro, where you at, 18? Where you at, 18? Okay, so I was born and raised in Houston, Texas, where you either played baseball or you were a gymnast. And what do you think? Or softball. What do you think I was? I was a gymnast. I mean, you really can't see me. To pick. Yeah. I was a gymnast from the age of, I started 3. I was a Károlyi gymnast. And for those of you who do not know who Károlyi is, and Maple is going to make an appearance. Here's Mapes. This is Maple. I drove 2 hours, met the owners in the middle, 2 hours, anyway. And you'll notice I am also ADD, so I'll go back and forth, and she wants to be part of this because I am now talking. Yeah, so age of 3, I was picked out of basically the normal, like, tumbling class, and the coaches basically said I was a hopeful, or an Olympic hopeful. They're like, we have our eye on you. At least that was the story that my mom told, and no offense to my mom, but I call her an unreliable narrator, so I'm not sure how valid that story is, or if she just, made that up to make it seem like I was more special than what I was. But at 3 years old, I was put into like a special class, even at 3 years old, because Károlyi was the Olympic coach. Károlyi, Bella, and Marta came over with Nadia Comenici, Romania. She was the first one that was able to get a perfect 10. What? Maple, seriously? Look at this. Come on, get off. Go, go, go. You need to get down. Thank you. But they defected to the U.S., and they defected to Houston, Texas, and opened up their own gym with Nadia. And that is where I ended up. Of course, for my mom, and for her kids, we did nothing but the best, or we got the best, coaches and gyms and all of that. So of course I went to the Olympic gym for gymnastics, Károlyi's gym, And, yeah, at 3 years old, I was picked out of the class, and I was picked as an Olympic hopeful, even at 3 years old. And the story supposedly is I was put into gymnastics because I just couldn't sit still. I was climbing on everything. And gymnastics was a way for me to get the wiggles out, and a way for my mom to put my nervous energy into something productive, and it turned into me having talent for gymnastics. So I stayed in gymnastics until I think I was about 10 or 11 or so, all through Károlyi's gym. I was homeschooled. I was in the gym. I don't remember much of childhood, except I do remember being in the gym. I have more memories of the gym and training versus being at home. The gym being at home, and being at the baseball field for my brother for his games, or for me then being on the softball fields, or practicing softball, or training as a pitcher, because I was a softball pitcher. But yeah, I learned extreme work ethic as a Károlyi's gymnast. You walked away with, you were training to be an Olympian. I was training to be an Olympian. I was on the Olympic track to be an Olympian. But unfortunately, my birth year was 1983 to age myself, which meant I missed my age for the 92 Olympics. I was too young. And then the 96 Olympics, I was like almost too old, or seemingly too old. And then the 2000, 92, I was too young. 96, I was a little too old. And then the 2000, I would have been way too old, or at least in gymnastics years, I would have been ancient. But I could have gone for the 2000 Olympics. So I trained next to Carrie Strug, Dominique Mosciano, the 96 Olympic, the golden, the team that won the gold medal, the famous, Carrie Strug vault. I trained with them, next to them. There were 3 gyms. The front gym was the Olympians. Second gym was the the lower, semi-lower ranks, and then the third gym was like the kids and everything. But I can distinctly remember the smell of each gym, and I can remember the locker rooms. I can remember going to Saturday. I loved Saturday practices because they were less stringent. I loved Saturdays because it's like I got to play almost. I wasn't yelled at for my form. There was some abuse. I didn't realize it at the time. Like they forced, like when we were stretching and stuff, like doing like the splits and stuff, they would force us down. Like they would push on our backs. Like we would be in like the middle splits, and like basically our legs spread and like laying on our stomachs. So like spread, like legs spread out with our stomachs on the ground, and like if we had any kind of play, like in between, not play, but any space, they would push us down. So they would stretch us. And that's, that's abusive. They didn't pose it as that. It was, they were forcing us down so that we were stretching our muscles, so that we were our flexibility. I remember hearing about girls getting surgery to have muscles, like the muscles of their inner thighs, like inner thigh muscles removed so that they could do the splits easier. I don't know if that was real or that was just, myth that was talked about through the locker rooms or whatever. But I also had a thing where competition-wise, I was right-handed. So when I did a cartwheel, I did cartwheels with left-handed. I started left-handed. When I did my handstands, I started with my right hand or right foot. My cartwheels were started with my left foot. That would have been points deducted. You had to start with the dominant, like it had to be uniform, which was weird. I could never start my cartwheels. Let's see. Yeah, I could never do my cartwheels with my right foot. I could always do my handstands with my right foot, starting off, like dismount. So like starting my right foot and going into this handstand, but doing a cartwheel, it was always left foot forward. I could never do a cartwheel with my right foot started. It just didn't, for whatever reason, my body just didn't get it. I'd mess it up every time. And I was like yelled at 24/7. They're like, what are you doing? Like you can't do that. Like you're going to get deducted points every time you do that. Judges are going to see that. You're going to get deducted. And I'm like, I'm sorry. I don't know what, like, I can't, it just feels weird. It feels wrong. It was just natural. I could not get it to where both of my cartwheels and my handstands were starting from the same foot. Like I was a southpaw and a right-handed and a southpaw on two different apparatuses basically, or starting a trick. Super weird. I don't know why. No idea. To this day, I'm not that way, or I'm that way still. So I think that was I don't know if it was like a 10th of a deduction or what. So I always knew that I was always going to be deducted every time that they would see that, if they were paying close attention. And of course I would be yelled at for that. They're like, stop starting with your right foot. Like I remember Marta or Bella, yelling at me, and we were coached by, Bella and Marta Károlyi, even at that young age. And sometimes it was just a look. Marta would give a look, and it was like, oh God, this just look of disappointment. And Bella had this gruff look, or gruff voice. And then whenever they were around or in the in the gyms and stuff and just observing and stuff, it was the other coaches and stuff acted worse or acted out, and they were just even more harsh and mean and unnecessarily mean. But the pushing us down to make us more flexible was a daily thing. They put it to us. I mean, and I'm under So I left Houston when I was 12. So I trained from 3 years old to sporadically until I was 12. But they posed it as if it was, oh, it's good for you. Like you're getting, we're helping you with your flexibility. But yeah, I specifically remember being pushed on my back, and I remember it hurting. And if you said anything like, "Oh, this hurts" or anything, they just they did it more. Like it didn't matter. And I was right hand dominant. Like my right splits and everything were better than my left, and so I always got like my left side was always like my weaker or whatever. Even though my cartwheels and stuff, that's how I started off my cartwheels and everything. But my favorite thing to do was the floor. I could fly. I felt so free. I'm gonna cry. I loved. Like Kim Zemeskal was one of my heroes. I would watch her. I remember seeing her like warm up by herself. It was like, it was like isolating. It was like right after the 92 Olympics, and I remember seeing her like warm up, and like I remember going up and like asking for her autograph. Like, this little like 11-year-old asking for an autograph, like, or 9-year-old, like, I mean, I don't know. She was very sweet though, like, um, very kind. That was nice of her. But I remember like thinking about it now, like how isolating that was, like for her just to be, or maybe it was just, she was just there just to warm up. It was her and a personal coach, because I had private lessons too, um, to work on whatever. But I remember watching her doing her. She was in the second gym, and I remember her warming up, watching her warm up, and seeing her warm up, and then just flying through the air, because she did. One of her passes on the floor was three um, three back layouts in a row. And I thought that was the coolest thing ever. Like, I mean, she flew. And I wanted to do that. Like, I thought it was just the coolest thing. And I remember being able to do, like, a layout, like a back handspring layout, and just thinking that was, like, the coolest thing ever. Like, being able to fly through the floor. And it was springy, so there was a little bit of a give. And I don't know. I'm just like rambling about gymnastics, but gymnastics was it was an incredible experience. It was hard. It was abusive. I did not experience the um, Nasser abuse. Whenever I did get hurt, my mom did take me to a different doctor. I did not go to the um, who was on staff, thankfully. I did go to Károlyi camp. That was out in the boonies or whatever in Texas. I did attend that, which was incredible. It's like I went from like a level 5 to like a level 9 in a week. I mean, I accelerated so much. It was incredible. It was 24/7 gymnastics. I lived and breathed gymnastics. Károlyi was not, they were good coaches. They were good coaches, but they also turned a blind eye to a lot of things. But that's what they knew. They came from Romania. I mean, they were on it. And I think, the coaches that they hired, it was a environment of harsh treatment, and they looked for results, and they wanted kids who were resilient, females who were resilient, and it weeded out the weak ones, and it created a work ethic and a drive, an internal drive of, I can do this. It's a individual sport, but it's also a team sport. But I also, I left because I had an incident on the vault where it's like I couldn't get back up on the horse, literally. I ran full force out, and a coach grabbed me because he thought I was going to get hurt, or saw that I was going to get hurt, and it rocked my world, and I could never run full force at the vault because I had a block. It was like I needed to like walk through the situation and walk through it and have time to process it and go, this is not going to hurt you. Like, you need to like, just, it's going to be okay. And they just expected you to get back up and run full force and go. And it killed me. 'Cause I felt like I failed myself. I felt like I failed everything that I had worked for, because I could not get over, every time I looked or I started to run full force towards the vault, I would veer off, I would stop, I would run into it. I just couldn't get over that, that traumatic experience of thinking that this coach is gonna like, rip my shoulder out of socket again. Because I think what he should have done is just let me fall on my face. Let me get hurt, and then let me deal with it, and then go from there. And my parents were very supportive. They said, hey, if you, got to think about it. If you're stuck, you're stuck. If you can't get past it, you really need to think about if this is what you want to do, or if you need some time and come back to it. But I think that I felt so much pressure to just jump back on and get back into it that I didn't give myself enough time to process. And at the time, in 93, 94, we didn't have the vocabulary words to process what trauma or a traumatic experience was. And they just expected you to get back on it. And I internalized this failure, and it was tough. And I walked away. I justified it by saying that I couldn't get over, envisioning just, continuing to mess up. I justified it by saying that, if I would have only been born in 82 or 81 or 84 or 85, like I was born in the wrong year, to hit the right ages for the Olympics. I was either too young or too old. But I mean, I was training to be an Olympian. And I still held on for a long time that a vault knocked me down, which in turn I really internalized it. But there was a lot of stuff going on outside of that. Like, my parents had taken out a second mortgage. It was not cheap. We were about to move, or potentially move, to Arkansas. There was a lot going on. So I think the timing of everything worked itself out. But it was My time as a Károlyi gymnast was incredible. Thank God, I missed out. That's one way to put it. I missed out on being sexually assaulted by Larry Nassar. Um, I could have very well. I was there at the Károlyi camp. I was there. Um, I would have been involved with him eventually because injuries happen. Um, but I don't regret any moment that I had. Um, and yeah, I attribute the drive and the work ethic and the ability for me to restart over and the internal desire to keep going despite all circumstances saying, you're, you know, the bottom rung, or there's a vault in front of you, and I'm like, I see you. I'm gonna run straight at you, and I'm gonna conquer you. So, yeah, that's my little snippet of a story of what it was like for me to grow up as a Károlyi gymnast. I don't know a lot of people who got to experience that, but I am very thankful that I did. And it could have been a lot worse, and I'm thankful that it wasn't. I'm also grateful and thankful for the experiences that I had. Um, yeah, I was told to lay off the Oreos. I was, there was a lot of body shaming. There was a lot of, there was a lot, there was a lot of abuse, that I don't think about or acknowledge, um, or I didn't allow it to sink in. Um, I really took the opportunity to really just enjoy it for what it was. And then in retrospect, I look back and go, wow, I could have gotten really too far into it. And I, there was something that was saving me from potentially a lot of stuff, um, that could have gone a lot wrong. So this is my first entry, and I'm gonna have to edit out all these ums. So thank you for listening. That's my little snippet of a little part of my upbringing.